This session, we are going to talk about a speaking skill conversation activity. You know, in TESOL, you have to write two kinds of lesson plans. One for conversation activities, which means you work on speaking, daily talk, and how students get fluent and accurate in speaking. The other one is for other skills like reading, writing, listening, and speaking also. But different kinds of lesson plans that we're going to discuss it. But first of all, the very first step when you want to start a career is you know your customers, your clients, who they are. What else do you need to know about your clients or customer?
What their needs are.
Bravo. What their needs are. What else?
Their level of comprehension, where to start.
Their level of comprehension. Yes. What else?
Previous knowledge, what information they have from the same thing that they do, and if they can link any.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So now let's get to teaching. This is your first session. You want to start a class with a new group. So you need to know them. Why? Why do you need to know your students?
It's like maybe they aren't very motivated, or they are very motivated. You wouldn't know that unless you asked them.
Okay.
That they
You can
can
ask adults. You can ask adults about the reason why they participate in the group, like me that I ask you. But what about teenagers and children? They usually come to the class because of their parents. Yes, the parents' decision that take them to the class. So that would be a very good questions, but definitely you can ask them only from adults. What else you need to know about them, and why it is important to know your students?
So that you know the best way to approach their learning, the best techniques to use.
Yes, yes, that's nice. That's nice. Okay. Hello, Carol.
Hello, good morning or good afternoon, actually.
Okay, how are you? We just started.
I'm a little stressed because my computer wouldn't sort of connect. So,
Oh, okay.
but I'm here.
Oh, okay, that's great. That's great. My name is Alham Bisahi. This session is on conversation activities. Okay, this webinar is on conversation activities.
Perfect.
Okay, so
you.
thank you very much for your ideas. That was very true. You need to know your students, because if you know their needs, their aim, you can plan for your class. And what they know so far about their previous knowledge. You want to teach, for example, Spanish. Have they studied Spanish before, or no? They're going to start it from the very beginning, scratch. So when you want to plan for your class, you should know their aim, their needs, and their knowledge. Also, the course schedule. When you start to work in an institute or in a college, there's a schedule, material, and they have curriculum. So you have to follow that curriculum as well. So you need to study that material as well. But you want to make your students to enjoy the class, to have more engagement in the class. So what do you need to know about your students to plan in a way that motivate them to learn? What do you know? What do you need to know about them?
Know about their interests. For example, teenagers like music, and talk about the music or talk about their favorite things and friends they are. You should know their interests, I think.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anything else Very good.
Yeah, I think students' learning styles is very important. So we can ask them some questions like about their everyday life or other classes, what kind of classes they like and why, so that we can understand how is their learning style. Do they prefer, for example, to be more for example, they connect with images or sounds or playing or everything like this. So we can have our planning according to the majority of the class, and we include everybody and their learning styles, so they really engage in our teaching and the class.
Thank you. Thank you very much. EJ, please.
Hi, yeah. As far as for my knowledge and concern, I think we should know about the students' background. Like some student they like the political issues, they always want to discuss about it. Some people they're coming from the sports background, so we need to know the what kind of the interest they are coming from. So I think we need to know.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's right. So it's good to know about their interests and hobbies, knowledge, career, very general questions. Definitely
Yeah,
we
in
never ask personal questions. Very general questions. Somebody wants to say anything?
Yes, I was trying to tell you something. Like in my first class, when the semester begins, I usually take a need analysis so that I can understand my students' need in order to follow the lesson planning in the same way. So I ask my students few questions. If like it's related to speaking, then I ask them, Kate, tell me about yourself, your likes and dislike, what are your hobbies, and some sort of information, and then I keep note of those things. And when I take the presentations from them, I give them this opportunity to decide their topics by themselves, so that they are interested in that topic. I do not impose those topics on them. Okay, you have to, present this topic in front of the class. So whatever is their interest area, they can pick up their interest area, and then they can talk in 2 or 3 minutes about it. So usually what happens is they are more interested in speaking than any in then when I like allocate them the topics.
Thank you. Thank you. So the same thing that I did, that would be nice. Always start with yourself. Always start with yourself. So you know a lot about me now. You know, I go for a walk every day. You know where I live. You know about my education, my favorite dessert, and what's my hobby. I like traveling, you know. So you know many things about me. The same for your students, like I ask you. So for 2 minutes, I want you to share what you like with the other students. In this way, you can create a good rapport in the class, and they feel comfortable and they trust you, and you know they know their classmates. So they like the atmosphere, they like the environment. This is the very first step, especially for teenagers and children, because they need to know this is a place that I feel comfortable. I can trust my teachers. I can trust my friends. I know them, and we are here because we want to learn new language. And then the second is you start to talk about the class. So this session, we're going to learn what? Like me, I said this session, we are going to talk about conversation activities. So they know what's going on. This session, we are going to study how you make a conversation at store. This session, we are going to discuss how you can summarize a reading or how you can write a paragraph. Not in very detail, but tell them what's going on or what's the aim of the session. Then what? Just imagine they come from work, they come from school, they come from gym, so somewhere before the class. You want to help them to concentrate better. We'll always start our class with a warm-up activity. Sometimes warm-ups are not very related to the objective of the lesson. to the main aim of the session. Just it's like it's starting, like when you want to play volleyball or basketball, you need to do warm-ups at first. Just warm up your body to start to do the activity, okay? So it's like this. Some of them are foreigners. They don't speak English. They're from different languages. So they were, for example, they were speaking Chinese. Now they get to the class. So they need to get prepared to start to speak English. So we have warm-up activities. The aim of warm-up activities is number one, boost the energy to the class, motivate your students to speak in the target language, either it is Spanish, English, or whatever, Arabic or whatever, because we have different language classes, of course, and help them to concentrate better during the class. One could be interviewing one another. You could say, okay, let's know our friends. Let's know your classmates. I want you to think about 5 WH questions. You're not going to ask personal questions, but very general, like when's your birthday? Like where do you go on weekends usually, or something like this. So write 5 or think about 5 WH questions. You have 30 seconds to think about it. Now, I want you to ask your student and then introduce your student to your class. So again, ask what's your nickname? When's your birthday? Where do you go on the weekends? And this kind of questions. What time do you usually go to bed? WH questions. Then they start to talk. Okay, this is my friend. His name is Tom. His birthday is in August 21st. They introduce each other. That's one way. The other could be, let's talk about your last weekend. Any interesting issues happened, or what did you do on last weekend? How was your last weekend? You have only 2 minutes. So generally warm up lasts for 5 minutes at most because you need time to teach. So just 5 minutes. So they share something or something happened, or for example, it's going to be New Year. What's your plan for New Year or summer holiday? These issues. So think about warm-up activities for your planning. Guys, can I ask you to mute your microphone, please? Yeah. Would you please mute your microphone? Thank you. So that's a sample, getting to know you. Like birthday, plan, the same thing that we were talking about, WH questions, hobbies, and these things. For conversation, before showing you this, let me ask you. So when we talk about conversation, what features we can think about? One is vocabulary, for sure. They need to learn some vocabulary. If they want to make conversation at a store, so they should know the words. What else they need to learn to make a conversation?
They need to learn structure, grammar, and anything that they can put these words together and make sentences and communicate their meaning, what they want to say.
Thank you very much, Farshad. That's right.
About the context in which they're talking. It might be just a familiar kind of a conversation. It might be a little bit more structured, talking to somebody who's older and requires a different kind of conversation.
That's so true. Just a formal, informal, verbal. Yes. What else? What if I come to the class and talk to you like this? The same tone, no facial, no gestures, nothing, what would you feel then? So just like getting to know you interview. I would like to introduce you to my friend. The same tonality, monotonous, and just robotically I look at through the camera. So what do you think? What was your feeling?
Definitely, body language and intonation is very important, and especially in age ranges like adolescents or children, it's very important that we make the class so engaging and different from everyday life and every other classes like in a school, that they do like to like engage and talk and be in the class.
Thank you very much. Somebody else wanted to say something?
I would think that you would, people wouldn't be engaged. They would be rather bored and you might turn them off fairly quickly. Without being animated, without being interesting, they would just think, well, why am I here? I could do something else.
That's true. They get bored. So body language is also important. When they learn conversation speaking, they should learn the body language of that language. Do you believe that we have same international body language, or it's different from one language to another language, or from one culture maybe to another culture?
It might be different. The first time that I
It
was
is
studying
different.
English, I recognized some kind of body language that we don't have in our language. Like, let me show you. When we are talking about a special word, or we wanna like say it allegedly, we use this in English, but we don't have it in our own language.
Yeah, that's right. That's something you have in English that you don't have it. That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. And I know something else about Farsi or Persian. You know, in English, when they want to say no, they say no. But in Persian or in Farsi, they say no.
yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Or in
hi.
when they won't understand something or something that they don't know in German, they do this. That sounds crazy. That many languages don't have it. Yeah. Or even it has different meaning. This gestures have different meanings in different languages. So body language is also important. Okay. Like eye contact,
Hi. I,
gestures.
I just want to elaborate it because I grew up in Dubai,
Hmm.
and there is a special people like they're from Kerala, from India, and when you talk about with them, and if you want to say like when we say with the head, to shaking head left to right mean no. Usually its
Hmm.
general meaning is no, but in the general meaning with the Kerala people is mean yes. When you talk when
Oh,
yeah,
it's completely opposite.
yes, when we talk, when we say, hey, can you do to me this, and they shake their head left to right and they say yes, 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 yes.
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
and if they and if they don't talk, like if they don't say anything, and we just sometimes they say it's mean, or it's the journal, we can take it in a wrong perspective, like they are saying no if you don't know that.
Oh, yes, of course. I would say they say no. Yes, that's right. That's right. So eye contact, facial expression, and posture, gesture, they're all important. If the teacher is a native teacher or the teacher that should study about it, okay, you need to tell your students about different body language that they can have while they're talking. So you need to say it. Or you need to prepare short video clip about different gestures or conversation with the gestures and email it to your student and say, I want you to watch it. Then shadow it and role play next time. Because your students, if they want to sound like native speakers or they speak that language naturally, so they have to learn that body language. The best way is shadowing. They watch it 2, 3, or 4 times, and then they try to role play exactly like that. That's a very good practice, but they need time, so you can put it as an assignment for them. You can Google and find it very easily. So another feature is body language. What else? Tonality. Tonality is also important. And this, I'm sorry. Brian, in this talk, that was a very short talk. So I think he said, when my mom called me Anthony, it means 100 more than Anthony. So the tonality is very important. Like when you ask them, let me use question tag. It's warm, isn't it? So your expectation is to get yes or no. When I say, it's getting warm, isn't it? What's my expectation? To get yes or no?
Maybe you don't want yes or no. Maybe you want to say, for example, open the window.
Oh, okay. So I know that the answer is yes. It means you agree with me,
Yeah,
and it is warm. Okay?
yeah.
Because of falling intonation. But when I said she's Julie, isn't she? So it means I'm not very sure for the answer. I'm not, I mean, maybe it's Julie, maybe she's not. So that is rising intonation. So tonality and intonation is another aspect of conversation that we need to teach to our students. Let me give you another example. When I said last summer we traveled to Paris, which word is more important to me? Or which word is more important that I want to share with you? Last summer, we traveled to Paris.
Paris.
Summer?
Paris, yes. Well, what if I said last summer we traveled to Paris?
Summer.
Yeah, last summer.
Last summer. So the tonality, intonation, and stress means a lot in making conversation and speaking. One practice could be like you write a sentence on the board and underline one of the words. Instead, I want you to ask a question, and this word would be the answer. Like, Millie works at a school every day. Then you underline every day. What questions could you ask that the answer be every day? Make that question.
And the question starts with when. When does this person work?
Yes. When does Millie, yeah, it could be when does Millie work at school? So then you ask your students, now repeat this sentence, but you're going to answer to that question. When does Millie work at school? So you would say, Millie works at a school every day. You put a stress on every day. Now ask a question with who. So they say, who works at school every day? Now give me the answer. Millie works at school every day. Where does Millie work every day? Millie works at a school every day. So that's a good practice that they learn The tonality, intonation, and stress on word in a sentence is important and make the conversation more meaningful and natural.
But what if they give the answer in just one word, for example, when
Every day, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Oh, we just want to practice. I mean, and we are not looking for the correct answer. We want to just practice intonation, tonality, and stress. So that will be one way to practice. But if they say every day, that's correct. Of course, that's the correct answer. Okay. What else? So body language, tonality, intonation, and stress, fluency. You know what's fluency? Who can tell me what fluency means in conversation?
Fluency means speak uninterruptedly.
Thank you. Just talking without pauses. So you don't understand what they're saying. They're talking, but there's lots of pauses, so it's very hard to connect the words and understand what they're saying. So a fluent speaker may make grammatical errors, but will speak or write efficiently. Do you understand what they're saying? Okay?
They have a good grasp of the language then.
That's right. That's right. So as a teacher, you pay more attention to meaning and context and less concern with grammatical errors. So what happened? You bring up a subject based on their interests because now you know your students. The very first session, you start to ask them about you ask them about hobbies and interests. So you know about their interests and hobbies. You start a topic that they like, talk about it, like football match or basketball teams or something that they like. Or if they're housewives, like different restaurants or different ingredients for making different dishes, something that they like. Then let them talk. Maybe even you list the vocabulary on the board. You can use these phrases, but let them talk. Let them use those words and the phrases. We never interrupt them because we're working on their fluency. You never interrupt them to correct them. No, let them talk. Work on their fluency. Another way, especially for lower level, like beginners, starter, is ask them to repeat some sentences. Can I have a kilo of potato, please? So we ask them to repeat. Can I have a kilo of potato, please? Can I have a kilo of potato, please? Can I have a kilo of potato, please? Then student B, of course. How much do you want? Or, of course, here it is. Or they are working on the phrase, do you like? Do you like computers? Yes, I do. Do you like the ice cream? Yes, I do. Do you like pizza? No, I don't. So do you like? Help them to get fluent in using that phrase. For lower level, repetition also works. Number 3, another practice could be they listen and then they repeat. They listen to small phrases, to some short sentences, and they repeat. So you need to listen to them and check their stress, intonation, and tonality. So they listen and repeat. But if you ask the whole class, I mean, if you have 10 students, you ask the whole class repeat together, what will happen if the 10 students repeat all together? Would you correct them? Did you get the question? Then listen to the phrase and then you ask them to repeat. And you have 10 students, all 10 together repeat that sentence. Can you recognize, can you correct them if they make mistakes?
I don't
Of
think
course
so.
not.
No, because 10 together, it's very difficult. So it's good you ask them individually. So the first sentence, you two, the second sentence, to other students. So just ask one or two students to repeat. Then you can listen perfectly. So working on fluency, body language, intonation, tonality, stress, and fluency. What is next? Accuracy. That you concentrate on grammatical errors, or they produce grammatically correct spoken English or that target language. But what is important is we need to teach them the grammar first, the structure first, then start to practice and ask them to use it in a conversation. So in conversation activities, we never teach that grammar or structure at the same time, because it's going to be very hard for your students. They are learning some new words, and then plus structure, it would be very difficult for them. So it's better first you teach the grammar, which is related to that conversation, the session before, or before that session. Then for the conversation, you just review that structure. Let's make it easier for your students to use the new structure. Otherwise, learning grammar, it's a bit difficult for all students. So they need time to practice that grammar. Sometimes you need to drill with them. Like simple present in English, they need to add S for the third person. For many foreign students, it's very difficult. They don't use S for the third person. So you have to drill with them. I go, she goes, he goes, Tom goes, Millie goes, wash. Then they start. I wash, they wash, we wash, but she washes. Millie washes. Ellie washes. You know, you have to drill. So that's why in conversation activities, we usually don't teach the grammar. Session before, it's better they have time to practice. They had the lesson. Then in new session, they're going to practice the grammar that they have already learned in the conversation, which says accuracy. But I have a question here for you. Lower level, higher level, beginners, elementary, advanced, and upper level. Which one you put more attention or emphasis on accuracy and fluency? For lower level or
Higher levels, I think.
which one? Accuracy or fluency?
For higher levels, I put more emphasis on accuracy because they should have their fluency till then. And now it's the time that if they have any kind of errors, they have to like correct themselves, or we have to help them to correct it, because if they are fluent but they have grammatical mistakes and they are, for example, in advanced level, it's time to correct it and learn it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Think about children, okay? When they start to talk their mother tongue, can they produce the language in a correct structure and they use correct grammar of the language?
No.
Yeah. How do they
They,
use the
they
language?
just try to speaking, not in incorrect way. They just say some words together. Here in a environment, yes.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
they
Any
just want
other
to
ideas?
communicate.
To try to convey the meaning.
That's it. They just want try to convey the meaning. So they say, "Mommy, out," or "Daddy, water." Water, cold. So they put the words and you understand them, but you never correct them. Sometimes you repeat it, you repeat the correct sentence, but you don't stop them. The same thing happens to your students when they start to learn a new language. So you help them to learn. First, let them become fluent in that language. Let them talk. Let them use the words. Okay? Then little by little, you correct them and teach them the structure. Then you ask, you get the feedback. When you teach them simple present tense, you practice and then you get the feedback. When they learn simple present tense, then you go to present continuous, past tense. So it takes time. Let your students become fluent. When they become fluent, you can work on their, from the very beginning, you teach them the structure little by little, but you pay more attention on accuracy when they get to higher level. Otherwise, if you, from the very beginning, if you stop them on and on to correct them, what will happen? You tell me.
They get stressed and they don't want to talk anymore. The next time that we ask a question, they won't answer because they don't like this feeling of interruption and feeling of not being competent enough to talk. So it's like disrupting them.
I think you'd be taking them back to the grammar translation method, wouldn't you, if you did that? So they wouldn't learn fluency.
No, wouldn't. Thank you very much. And they will lose their self-confidence. They say, oh, I cannot learn this language. Demotivate. So that's why let them talk and use the words, use the functions. You just try to understand what they're saying, and then you help them to speak correctly. What's more? So we talk about body language, intonation, stress, and tonality, fluency, different activities and exercises to practice their fluency and accuracy, then phrases. In all languages, there are some functions and phrases that they use in specific situation or circumstances or in conversations. Like, I don't know, or I don't understand it, or I know, I understand it. Sometimes in English they say, okay, of course, all right, I see, I got you. I notice what you say. I can understand what you're saying. Oh, I know what you mean. I take your point. So there are different phrases. We never list all in one session, of course, but when they learn, I know, then you teach them 2 more phrases. When they learn the 3, for example, those 3, you teach them 3 more phrases. So teach them the phrases that are very common in the language to sound more natural and more meaningful. Like also in their writing, they always write in conclusion. So say, okay, this time you can write in summary, to conclude, to sum up. All in all, it depends on the writing, of course, what kind of writing it is. But they know different phrases. So teaching phrases is another aspect of conversation activities and functions, of course. Can you give me an example for functions? Like what? Language functions in English. Okay, let me help. When you want to make a suggestion, how do you start? You want to ask your friend to go out for a walk. How do you
Why
start
not
it?
go to the cinema, for example?
Mm,
Why not go to the park?
mm. Thank you.
How about drinking some tea?
Yes, that's right. So these are the functions we usually use in friendly talking for making suggestions. Let's go out for a
Let's.
walk. Yeah, let's. How about?
Mhm.
Why not? But in more formal situation, would you like?
Yeah,
So
would
as
you
Dave
like?
said, they should learn formal language and friendly or informal language. So would you like to do this? So these are functions. How to ask for help, how to request, how to give advice. If I were you, I would do this.
How to respond to question or respond some sentences. For example, I agree. That's right.
Yes, that's right. Perfect. So even we work on the functions, and you can ask your students. That's what I usually do. I ask my students have either digital or just their notebook, regular notebook, and they make different parts for phrases, for functions, and they because they need to review. Phrasal verbs in English is really difficult for foreigners. So I ask them to, it's good to write down and just review every day. Like phrasal verbs that you can use when you have conversation on phone. So we say pick up, cut off, hang up, put through, hold on, or break up. So if that session they're working on making conversation on the phone, you need to teach these the related phrasal verbs. There's no rule. They have to review on and on to remember. So that's why I say take notes and review for next session. They become more fluent and more accurate. So in English, we have phrasal verb, but in Arabic, how to pronounce this is different. So a, e, o is going to be different. And suffixes and prefixes make the meaning of the word different. So they have to make a list and learn what suffixes to use or what prefixes to use if they want to say this word in Arabic. Or in German, for example, the or the, how do you say that? So they have, because there's no rule, and they have to review it on and on to remember. So related phrasal verbs. Expressions. Also, we have idioms and expression in language. Like, you'll never be able to eat all that cake. Keep your options open. Getting a quick summary of the story. What kind of expressions do you use for these situations? When you want to say keep your options open, how do you say that? What expression you say in English? You mean keep your options open. Any expressions can you think about? Or getting a quick summary of the story. Sometimes it's difficult to remember. Yes? That's it, huh? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. This goes for?
Or keep your options open.
Exactly. Keep your options open. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Or when you want to say getting a quick summary of the story, how do you say that?
Make a long story short. Yeah.
Make a long story short. And you never be able to eat all that cake, and said challenge accepted. There was a series. You always said that challenge accepted. Okay, so these are different expressions that they have it in English, and maybe they don't understand it. What does it mean? Make a long story short. Or what do you mean? Put don't put all your eggs in one basket, what it means. So we need to teach them the expressions of the language as well. All these happens when you are teaching conversation. So far, is everything clear to everyone? Any
Yes,
questions?
thank you.
Sure. Any questions?
Yeah, when we teach for conversation, why don't we integrate like listening as well? Because as far as I know, we should integrate all four language skills. You can't just
Of course.
teach speaking, for example. And so we said no grammar while doing conversation because it's overwhelming. Okay, I agree on that. But at the same time, you need to integrate any other skill like listening. They have to listen first before talking. Maybe read something first and then they talk.
That's so true. That's so true, Aisha. We will, but now our focus is on conversation. So when you plan for teaching conversation, you know what features you need to consider. But definitely you're right. I'm going to talk about it for sure, for sure. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning. So this goes for presenting, presentation. You practice all of them. New words, you review grammar, you work on their fluency and accuracy, depending on the level, intonation, tonality, stress, phrases, expressions, and phrasal verbs, but all, of course, not happen in one session. It depends on the conversation. For sure, not everything happens every sessions. But what's next? So you teach something, you need to give them time to practice. If presentation takes about 7 or 8 minutes, practice time takes 15 to 16 minutes. It takes time for a student to learn. For practice time, it should be controlled. It's better to be controlled. For lower levels, it's good to start with controlled practice. So you help them to use that word in different situation, or that phrase or new function in different situation. Like this, what are you doing these days? You want them to use at the moment, now, these days, at present. So you list them on the board and say, okay, in pairs or in groups, I want you to practice. I want you to practice and talk about what are you doing these days, but I want you to start your sentence with at the moment, or now, or these days, or at present. So what happened is, while they're practicing in pairs or in groups, they have to use the new function, the new words, the new phrases on and on, so they become more fluent, and they learn it. They learn it. So when it's a time to get feedback, they have enough time to practice. So after presentation, you need to think about different exercises, different activities for practicing that functions to practice. You know, how do you learn new things? Before saying that, let me ask you something. When you want to learn something, what do you do? What's your style of learning? What's your mode of learning? How do you learn something new?
Traditionally, we would read about it, but nowadays, for me myself, when I wanna learn something new, I would rather watch videos about it. For example, I search it on YouTube and find tutorial videos on it and watch them. But I think for every kind of learning, connecting the new things that we're gonna learn to what we know previously would help a lot.
Definitely. Definitely. Okay, what about the others? How do you learn something?
I research.
Well,
I just
Yes,
carry out a
well
research.
research.
Research it. And then You have
Well,
to
in my
see it.
case, I listen and watch
Researching things
YouTube.
and reading things out.
Hi, Hira, yeah, are you talking? Yes, when you talk together, I
Yes,
can
I
understand.
was
Hira?
sorry. I was telling you that I search out things and I read about the stuff that I want to learn. Moreover, I also prefer watching videos if there are some tutorials that can help me out, so I watch those tutorials too. But I do extensive research about the topic.
Okay, thank you.
For
And
me,
mhm,
I just do practice and practice and practice.
thank you. See, you have different styles of learning. Your students be like this. Some of them are visual. They need to see. I'm 80% visual. I have to see it. That is why I like surfing, because I can see. That's why when I want to teach, I make PowerPoint and show it to my students. So some of your students are visual. So when you think of visual students, what do you need to prepare for your teaching? They're visual
Like
learners.
Bring some materials,
things,
for example, some
videos.
pictures about new words, some pictures, because they are visual, and by watching the pictures, they can learn new words.
What else?
Yeah.
Once I
What else?
conducted a workshop on speaking skills. It was like teaching grammar through communicative approach. So at that time, I focused on showing pictures of of one area that was about like around 50 years ago and now. So past and present, it was like a comparison between past and present by showing the pictures of the same place, and like it provoked them, and with the help of questions, they constructed their answers and they speak out the stuff. So
Thank you. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. That's very nice. So what you did was it's a kind of game or some activity that everybody had to role play. Yeah?
yes, exactly. Everyone had the flashcards, and they had like separate set of pictures of places, same places, but the different pictures, like old and new picture, and they talked about it.
Thank you. So some learners are visual, so they need videos, posters, pictures, PowerPoint they need to see. Some other, they need to act, or as our friend said, practice, practice, practice. We call them kinesthetic learners. They need to role play. They need to act. So
Yeah,
there are
sometimes it is like
kinesthetic
they need
learners.
to touch the things in order to learn it.
Mhm. Yes, that's true. Some are auditory learners. They need to hear. Like my son, 95% auditory. He learned everything out of school. He never studied. He just learned it at the time that teacher is teaching. He gets it. Okay? So guys, would you kindly mute your microphone? Thank you. Auditory learners. For auditory learners, what kind of material you need to take to the class?
One of them is music, their favorite music.
Yes, you can use music if it's related to the objective of the lesson, of course. And audios. Mhm.
Or
Audios.
storytelling.
Yes. So audio. And you need to explain because they're listening to you too. Yeah. You need to explain to them. That goes for auditory learners. Some are read and write. They need to read about it and they need to take notes. So you need to prepare worksheets. They need to have workbooks to do the activity because they need to write to learn. So when you plan for your class, you think about your teaching aids, teaching materials that I need to take to the class. For my visual learners, posters, video links, PowerPoint, board, okay? Virtual board. I need to write on the, you have to type it, or in your online classes, you have to type it on the board because I need to see. For auditory ones, audios related to the lesson. And you need to explain. And you ask them to talk about it. You ask about their ideas. You ask them to use the words and talk about that when they're speaking, so they have to hear it to learn. For read and write learners, prepare worksheets, activities, related workbooks, handouts. They read and they take notes and write. And for kinesthetic ones, games, related games, educational games, role plays. So when you plan for practice time, consider all learners. Consider all learners. If you only prepare posters and PowerPoint, only visual learners would learn it best, but not the others. So that's what happens. Sometimes when I observe classes, the teacher said, I explain it 100 times, but still they have problems. And I said, because you only explain it, and it's good for auditory learners. Visual learners need to see. Kinesthetic learners need to act. Read and write learners need to read it and do the activity. So we plan for all. What happened in conversation that we need to be, I mean, we teachers need to be aware of, is you need to structure talk. Make sure that all learners get a chance to talk and to participate. Sometimes some students are sharp students. They know how to talk. They had a better experience in that language, or they like to talk. So they always volunteer and talk. But what about your shy students, introverted students? So you need to plan for them. You can have pair working, group working, or sometimes you ask them, I want you next time to start the conversation. So you two, I want you to make a conversation on this topic after 5 minutes. Also, avoid the talk loop. It happens. Sometimes one of your students says something and you answer. Again, he said something and you answer. So it's going to be with one student and a teacher all the time, or a student A and another student B. These two always talks. Okay? So avoid the talk loop and open conversation. When we make yes, no conversation, you close the conversation, you know? But WH conversations or WH questions, it's the key to continue the conversation. So I always said, when you are talking with your student, with another students, I want you to make, for lower level, I want you to make 5 WH questions. So where, how, when, who, what. So they can ask more questions and the conversation continues. What else that this is sometimes I do in my classes, I play devil's advocate. So I say something deliberately. I talk about something that I know they don't like it. So they, in this way, they try so much to talk and say, no, you're wrong. And they try to make more sentences to convince, no, this is not right. Or you motivate your students to talk. Like, I think, what's your, in my last session class, I said, I believe girls should start driving the age of 15, but boys 20, because ladies more careful in their driving. And you know what happened? The boys wanted to kill me. But That session was the best session. Everybody talked. Okay, everybody talked in it. So that's it. Sometimes you need to play devil's advocate in a class. If you agree with your student and so that's done, you say, they say, oh, I agree, finish. So what can I do that make my students to talk more? Is that clear, everyone?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
This could be like picture different tasks. So you put your students in pairs, giving them picture A and B, and they can talk about it, make conversation about it. Group planning tasks, you can put them in groups and planning for a holiday. Because you want them to become fluent in for the new lesson. So it's better you make a list of what are your expectations. If you want them to use specific structure, phrasal verbs, functions, or words, make the list and say, okay, in your conversation, I want you to use these expressions or these words or this structure. So plan for next holiday, I want you to use going to. What are you going to do? Not will anymore, but going to, because you are planning. So group planning task could be an activity. Ranking task is an activity. Well, like, what is the most useful invention? So talk about different inventions and then tell me what's the most useful invention and why. Discuss it in your group. This is another one. Like I started planning a holiday. So now I want the student, he works in a travel agency, and you do your best to talk to student B and encourage him or her to go to Brazil. So that's another way of conversation. What expressions, what functions, what words they're going to use, you help them. But that's a good practice. Or talking about different advertisement, brochures. Maybe you bring the brochures to the class and I say, okay, here's the brochure. You're in your store. How do you explain it to your customer? And you are the customer. What questions you're going to ask? Even you can ask your students, for next time, I want you to bring one advertisement to the class. We are going to talk about it. So they bring different papers to the class. Or in their online classes, they're going to share it on the screen. And then you put them in different groups or breakouts. In your online classes, you can put students in breakouts. So 2 or 3 students can talk together. There are breakout rooms, even in Canvas. So they can talk about one brochure or one advertisement or one topic. And this teacher can go to these breakouts to monitor them. So you choose the breakouts and click on it, you can hear those students. Then you choose breakouts 2, then you can listen to group 2. Even in your online classes, you can put them in pairs and groups to talk. Pyramid discussion. You give them a topic to a pair. 2 students talk about the topic. Like, what would you do if you are on a boat which was sinking? What would you do? What would you take? So maybe they talk. I take some food, my laptop, my cell phone, and the other said, okay, how can you charge your cell phone? Because you are in the middle of nowhere. So I would take a flashlight. So they have a discussion in pairs. Then he said, okay, now 2 pairs just join. Okay, they're going to be 4. Now discuss about the same topic and listen to other students. What would they take from that boat? Then those four join the another four. So they're going to be 8. So that discussion goes on and on. Pyramid discussions make the group bigger and bigger. Here is it. Your ship is sinking and you have to swim to a small island. You can take only 5 things in your small bag. What items will you take with yourself? So first 2, then those 2 join another 2, and then your 4 to another 4, and 8 to another 8. It depends on the number of the students in your class. So they discuss it all together. This is another kind of practice for conversation. Even when you want them to use a specific grammar or structure, you can, as I told you, you can put it on your PowerPoint on the board, like I'll, if, or I'm going to. That topic, what would you take? I'm going to take this because, or I'll take this if, or I would take this. And then you practice, when do you say I'm going to, when you say I'll, if, when you use because, when you use I would, when I use so different. You never work on all these subjects in one session, but you can have the same activity for different purposes, for different structures. Here's another. Look at this picture. You're practicing WH questions. Look at this picture, and I want you to make a conversation, but use these words or use these WH questions words. How, when, who, what. For lower level, you can say, okay, look at these pictures and make questions with these words. Like, who are they? What are they doing? Where are they? Very good. Then you write the questions on the board and say, okay, now I want you to ask it from your partner, and your partner give you the answer. Definitely for higher level, you can use more complicated pictures and they make up a conversation on that. Like this, make a conversation. What are they talking about? Or imagine yourself role play. So student A is the girl, student B is the boy. So you're gonna have different conversation on the fly. But in all, we remember body language, we check their body language, intonation, tonality and stress, expression, related expressions that they can use. If they need to use some phrasal verbs, we have to teach them first, then we get the feedback. Expressions, we have to teach them first, then they will get the feedback. And we give them time while they are practicing to become more fluent. We monitor them to become more accurate. That's conversation activity. Any questions? If you have any questions, it's the time to ask. Yeah, I know Hira. Hira, I hope it works now for you.
I had a question about the conversation sessions. How is good to somehow sum up the conversation and close it and do the end activities of the conversation class?
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question. Can you say what you exactly mean?
They
Oh, okay, I
they
got you.
see that there's kind of conclusion after all these talking. They get some kind of sense of conclusion, and we close the conversation and close the session. How should that be?
Oh, okay. I'm going to go through the detail in the speaking sessions. We're going to have a session on 4 skills. So listening and speaking, I will talk about it. But just to answer to your question, the best way is the time that they talk about their real life. So they practice and they make a conversation in one situation that you ask them to talk about. Then the best way is they use those expressions when they talk about their own experience. Like if in that session they learn about the words that they use at store, or if they learn about the words that they use when they want to talk about natural disasters. So the time that they start to talk about their experience, have they heard about it or have they read about it on the news? And then it said, yes, I heard it about a month ago. There was a disaster in Turkey, the earthquake. So they start to talk about that. They use the same phrases. They use the same phrases, the new phrases, when they are talking about their experience. That's the time that you know, oh, they own the language, they learn it. So talking about their real life with the objective of the session would be the final stage of learning. That we're going to discuss it in detail for the next webinar.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much for mentioning. Thank you very much for mentioning.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. Thank you very much. And hope to see you next weekend. Okay? We're going to see each other next Saturday. Although you have a session with Daniel on Mondays.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
have
very much.
2 days in a week, yeah?
Yes. Saturday and Monday. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye.
Great
Same
weekend
You
too.
too.
here.
Have a good
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.